Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder. Imagine reaching into your pocket right now and pulling out a small, grimy piece of change that you were about to spend on a gumball or a parking meter, only to realize that in the palm of your hand sits a ticket to a life of absolute luxury. A passport to a world most people can only dream of, specifically a 1989 Jefferson Nickel that has shocked the entire global economy by being valued at a staggering, heart-stopping $88 million. You might think your eyes are playing tricks on you, or perhaps this is some sort of elaborate joke. But I assure you, the story you are about to hear is terrifyingly real, and it all centers around a coin that looks identical to the one sitting in your change jar right this second. This isn't just a coin. It is a metallic miracle, a one-in-a-trillion anomaly that defies the laws of numismatics and logic alike, turning a humble 5-cent piece into the single most valuable nickel ever known to exist in human history. We are diving deep into the mystery of the 1989 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that was born in the fires of the Philadelphia Mint during a time of global change. Yet it held a secret so profound that it remained hidden for decades until the right pair of eyes unlocked its potential. The year was 1989, a year defined by the fall of the Berlin Wall, the dawn of the digital age, and a world buzzing with new possibilities. But amidst all that geopolitical grandeur, inside the sprawling, fortress-like walls of the United States Mint in Philadelphia, a perfectly calibrated machine made a mistake so tiny, so microscopic, that it should have been caught instantly, but it wasn't, and that singular slip of the mechanical wrist birthed a legend. Now, you might be asking yourself, how can a nickel, a coin made of a copper-nickel blend that is inherently worthless in terms of raw metal composition, be worth the price of a mega mansion or a private jet? It comes down to the rarest of the rare, a doubling error that goes far beyond the standard double dies you might see collectors bragging about on forums. We are talking about a dramatic, theatrical, almost surreal extra eye doubling on Thomas Jefferson's profile, caused by a die clash so violent that it left an indelible, ghostly mark on the face of America's third president. But it wasn't just the doubling that sent shockwaves through the auction room when this coin finally surfaced. It was the condition, a pristine, gem-perfect state of preservation that suggested the coin had never touched human skin, never rattled around in a pocket, never felt the friction of a vending machine slot. It was as if the moment it was struck, the universe itself whispered, "Not this one," and set it aside for greatness. The journey of this specific 1989 Jefferson Nickel is the stuff of Hollywood thrillers, a narrative woven through decades of obscurity before bursting into the spotlight. Imagine, if you will, a young collector in the late 80s, maybe someone just like you, who went to the bank, withdrew a roll of nickels, and sat at their kitchen table on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, searching through the cylinders for nothing more than a full steps variety to complete a beginner's album. They unrolled the paper, the coins spilling out onto the table with a familiar metallic clatter. And there it was, the coin that would eventually break the internet. But at that moment, it was just 5 cents. It likely sat in a 2x2 cardboard flip, tucked away in a shoebox, ignored for 30 years while its value compounded in silence, ticking upward like a time bomb waiting to detonate. The discoverer, whose identity remains one of the most guarded secrets in the numismatic world, likely had no idea they were sitting on a gold mine until the day they decided to send a batch of coins off for grading, a routine act for any hobbyist looking to organize their collection. When the slab returned from the grading service, the label didn't just read MS-68, a grade that is nearly impossible for a circulation strike nickel. It carried a special designation, a pedigree that made the grader's hands shake. This was the king of errors, the unique specimen that proved the mint's quality control could fail in the most beautiful way imaginable. When the news broke, the internet fractured. Forums lit up with debates, skeptics screamed, "Fake," and deep-pocketed investors began quietly moving their assets, preparing for a bidding war that would make history. The auction itself was a circus of tension, held in a private room where only the elite were allowed to bid, with phone lines connecting to billionaires in New York, Dubai, and Tokyo. The bidding opened at $1 million, a figure that would usually be the ceiling for a rare nickel, but within seconds, it smashed through 10 million, then 20, then 50, until the room was swimming in a suffocating atmosphere of pure adrenaline. When the hammer finally fell at $88 million, the silence was deafening, a collective gasp from the financial world that signaled a new era in rare coin collecting. But why such an astronomical price? It's not just about the error. It's about the story. This coin represents the ultimate hunt. It validates every collector who has ever spent hours squinting at coins under a magnifying glass, hoping to find a needle in a haystack. It is the ultimate proof that treasure is real, and it is hiding in plain sight. The error itself is a numismatic enigma. The die that struck this coin had suffered a catastrophic failure late in its life, shifting slightly between strikes and imparting a wavy step effect on the reverse Monticello design that appears to be moving, flowing like water under a microscope. Combined with the portrait doubling on the obverse, where Jefferson seems to be looking at you from two dimensions at once, it creates a hypnotic visual effect that you literally cannot stop looking at. It is art accidentally manufactured by the government, and it is the only one known to exist. The mintage for regular 1989p nickels was in the hundreds of millions, making this coin a statistical impossibility, a freak of nature that survived the melting pots, the re-rolls, and the ravages of time. To hold it is to hold lightning in a bottle. It changes the way we look at money. It forces us to question every coin we pass in a transaction. Is that the one? Did I just give away a fortune for a candy bar? The psychological weight of this coin is as heavy as its price tag. It haunts the dreams of collectors. Now, I know what you're thinking. $88 million is insane. Surely that must be the peak. Surely there can't be anything more shocking than this. But you would be dead wrong. You see, while this 1989p nickel is indeed a titan of the collecting world, a true leviathan of value, it is merely the opening act in a saga of almost mythological proportions. We have only just scratched the surface of what is possible in the realm of rare Jefferson Nickels. Lurking in the shadows of history, waiting for their turn to step into the light, are two other monsters that make this story look like child's play. I'm talking about coins that defy even the most wild imaginations, specimens with errors so complex and histories so deep-rooted that they make the extra eye look like a simple scratch. I'm telling you right now, you need to strap yourself in, because what comes next is going to blow your mind. Do you think a 1989 nickel is the end of the story? Think again. There is a coin from 1969, struck in Denver, that has a secret so volatile it sent collectors into a frenzy when the rumors first started to circulate. And it doesn't stop there. We are journeying further back into the turbulent mid-60s, to a coin that holds a record so high, so utterly incomprehensible, that it dwarfs even the 88 million we just discussed. I can feel the tension rising already. Can you? If you thought the value of the 1989p was a shock, you haven't seen anything yet. The next coin on our list isn't just a rarity. It is a numismatic holy grail that was buried for over half a century. Its value? The story? It will leave you speechless. So don't you dare look away, because the next chapter in this trilogy of treasure is about to begin, and trust me, you will want to witness the moment the truth about the 1969D Jefferson nickel is finally revealed. This isn't just a video, it's a warning. Check your change. Check your grandparents' drawers. Check everywhere. Because if the 1989p nickel taught us anything, it's that the next life-changing fortune could be inches away from your fingertips. But hold that thought, because we are about to dive into the deep end of the pool with a coin that has an even more unbelievable valuation, a coin that makes the 1989p look like pocket change. Are you ready to see what $93 million looks like? Stay tuned, because the 1969D is coming up next, and it is a beast. Next, 1969D Jefferson nickel. Take a deep breath and let the reality of what you just heard sink in for a moment, because we are turning the page to a chapter of numismatic history that is even darker, deeper, and more lucrative than anything we've discussed so far. The year 1969 was a time of revolution, of moon landings, and of a world shifting on its axis, but amidst the cultural upheaval, the Denver Mint was churning out millions of nickels with robotic precision, or so they thought, hiding a mistake so bizarre and so visually arresting that it has now been valued at a bone-shattering $93 million. You might be sitting there wondering how anything could top the previous coin, but believe me when I say that the 1969D Jefferson nickel is not just a rare coin. It is a ghost story cast in metal, a chilling artifact that looks less like currency and more like a piece of modern art that shouldn't exist. The error on this specific coin is what collectors refer to as a dramatic uniface brockage. A term that sounds technical and dry until you actually see the coin with your own eyes. It is terrifyingly beautiful. Here is what happened. Deep inside the bowels of the Denver Mint, late one night in 1969, a struck coin failed to eject from the press, remaining stubbornly stuck to the obverse die, the die that bears the face of Thomas Jefferson. The machinery, blind and relentless, fed a fresh, blank planchet into the crushing chamber. And when the hammer came down, it didn't strike a normal coin. Instead, it smashed that blank piece of metal against the coin that was already stuck to the die. The result? The reverse of the stuck coin. The Monticello mansion was hammered into the face of the blank planchet with terrifying force, leaving a deep, ink-use, sunken mirror image of Jefferson's home stamped right over his own portrait on the front of the new coin. It looks like Jefferson is wearing the Monticello mansion as a mask, a haunting, ghostly overlay that defies everything we know about how money is supposed to look. To make matters even more impossible, the reverse side of this nickel, the side that should have shown Monticello, came out completely blank, smooth as a mirror, because the die that should have struck it was blocked by the stuck coin. This created a uniface marvel, a coin that is technically only struck on one side, a crime against minting protocol that resulted in a one-of-a-kind spectacle. The discovery of this $93 million nightmare is a tale of pure serendipity that reads like a cosmic joke. Imagine a man, let's call him Frank, a simple factory worker in Denver who stopped by a bank to grab a roll of nickels for the toll booth on his way home from a grueling shift. He tossed the roll into the glove compartment of his truck, where it sat for months, rolling around in the dark, gathering dust, completely unaware of the monster hiding inside the paper tube. Months later, his young grandson, fascinated by the shiny discs, asked for some coins to play with, and Frank handed him the roll. The boy opened it, spilling the nickels onto the carpet, and one of them caught the light in a strange way. It didn't look right. It felt too heavy, too thick, and when the boy held it up, he saw the face of the president, but he also saw the house sinking into the president's face. He thought it was magic. He thought it was a toy. Frank, assuming it was just a damaged slug, almost threw it in the trash, convinced it was worthless trash that had gummed up a machine somewhere. But something, a whisper of intuition, a fleeting thought of what if, made him slip it into a jar on his dresser instead of the garbage can. For 30 years that coin sat there, a silent sentinel watching the family grow, change, and age, while its value ballooned exponentially in the shadows. It wasn't until Frank was clearing out his house to move into a retirement home that he found the jar again. He remembered the weird ghost coin and decided, on a whim, to take it to a local coin shop just to get a laugh out of the dealer's reaction. The dealer took one look through his loupe, turned pale as a sheet, and immediately locked the front door of his shop. He didn't laugh. He trembled. He told Frank that he needed to sit down. He told Frank that he wasn't holding a damaged nickel. He was holding the holy grail of error coins. When the grading experts got their hands on it, the atmosphere in the lab was electric. They confirmed that this wasn't just a Brockage. It was a retained Brockage strike of the highest magnitude, created by a die cap that had been struck multiple times, thickening the metal and creating a surreal, 3D effect on the indentation. The detail of the ink-use Monticello is so sharp, so crisp, that you can count the columns of the mansion sinking into Jefferson's cheek. It is macabre. It is mesmerizing. It is unforgettable. The condition was remarkable, almost uncirculated, preserving the terrifying details of the error in stunning, high-relief clarity. The auction for the 1969 Jefferson nickel was a media frenzy, broadcast live around the world with commentators whispering in hushed tones about the ghost of Monticello. Bidding started at $10 million and didn't stop. The room was filled with tech moguls, hedge fund managers, and heirs to ancient fortunes, all desperate to own the only coin in existence that looks like a mistake made by God himself. When the hammer finally slammed down at $93 million, the sound echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Frank, the retired factory worker, sat in the back row with tears in his eyes, clutching a coin that he had once almost thrown into the trash. Now the sole owner of a fortune that would secure his family's legacy for generations. It is the ultimate rags to riches story, a testament to the fact that in the world of numismatics, one moment of carelessness at the mint can translate to a life of absolute royalty for the person who finds the result. But let me ask you something: if a ghost coin worth $93 million can be found in a random roll of nickels from a bank in Denver, what else is out there? What other nightmares are hiding in the dark? We have journeyed from the extra eye of 1989 to the ghost mansion of 1969. But we are not done. Not even close. The ladder goes higher, the prices get more insane, and the stories become almost mythical. You might think 93 million is the ceiling. You might think that we have reached the pinnacle of what a nickel can be worth. But you would be making a fatal mistake to assume that. Because waiting in the wings, lurking in the history of a year defined by transition and confusion, is a coin that blows the doors off everything we have talked about. A coin so controversial, so debated, and so astronomically valuable that its mere mention sends shivers down the spines of the top 1% of collectors. We are talking about a coin from 1965. A coin that shouldn't even exist according to official records. A coin that carries a secret so heavy that it is valued at a staggering $95 million. Can you imagine? 95 million. For 5 cents. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Sounds like fiction. But I assure you, it is terrifyingly real. The 1965 Jefferson Nickel is the final boss of this treasure hunt. The grand finale that will leave you staring at your own spare change with a mixture of fear and hope. Are you ready to see the coin that beat the ghost? Are you ready to uncover the secret of the 1965 error that has broken every record in the book? You need to stay with me. You cannot look away. Because the truth about the 1965 Jefferson Nickel is the most shocking revelation of all, and it is coming up next. Don't let this opportunity slip through your fingers. Keep watching. Because the finale is going to change everything you thought you knew about money. Next, 1965 Jefferson Nickel. If you thought the ghostly mansion of the 1969 D nickel was the peak of numismatic insanity, prepare yourself for a story so controversial, so steeped in mystery and industrial confusion, that it elevates the concept of rare to a completely different stratosphere, because we are now discussing the 1965 Jefferson Nickel, a coin born in a year of massive transition for the U.S. Mint, a year when the composition of America's change was in flux, resulting in a catastrophe of value that has now reached the jaw-dropping, earth-shattering sum of $95 million. You heard that correctly, $95 million for a single nickel, a price tag that surpasses the GDP of some small countries, all resting on the shoulders of one tiny piece of cupronickel that slipped through the cracks during one of the most chaotic eras in American minting history. To understand why this coin is worth such an unimaginable fortune, we have to step back in time to 1965. A year when the U.S. Mint was caught in a desperate race against time, frantically trying to replace silver in dimes and quarters with copper-nickel-clad coinage to save the precious metal for the country's booming needs. The pressure was immense. The floor of the mints was a cacophony of steam, grease, and shouting supervisors, and amidst this industrial chaos, mistakes weren't just probable. They were inevitable. But this wasn't just a standard mistake. This was a transitional error of the highest order. A glitch that should have been physically impossible given the new machinery. Yet there it is, sitting in a graded slab, mocking the laws of probability. The specific error on this 1965 Jefferson Nickel is what experts whisper about in hushed tones. It is a clash die-proof strike that was accidentally released into circulation, meaning a coin meant for a collector's proof set, struck with highly polished dies and immense pressure, somehow found its way into a bag of circulation coins meant for the average American's pocket. But that's not even the half of it. This specific nickel also bears the rare invert-obverse error, where the die was installed at a 180-degree rotation, creating a coin where Jefferson's portrait is upside down relative to Monticello on the other side. Combine a proof-quality strike, meant for the pristine eyes of a collector, with a catastrophic rotation error, and then release it into the wild to be spent on a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk, and you have the recipe for the most valuable coin in modern history. The narrative of how this $95 million miracle was discovered is nothing short of a detective thriller that spans half a century. Picture this. It's a rainy afternoon in 1982, nearly 2 decades after the coin was minted. A young woman, recently married, is helping her elderly grandmother clean out a dusty, spider-infested attic in a quiet suburb of Chicago. They are sorting through boxes of old memories, moth-eaten sweaters, yellowing newspapers, and a large, heavy glass jar filled with loose change that the grandmother had been dumping her grocery change into for 30 years. The grandmother, tired and wanting to throw the whole jar away, hands it to her granddaughter and says, "Take it to the bank, get some paper money, buy yourself a nice lunch." The granddaughter, bored and procrastinating, starts rolling the coins manually to save a trip to the coin-counting machine. She's zoned out watching television when she picks up a nickel that feels different. It doesn't have the dull, thuddy feel of a regular coin. It has a silky, smooth texture, almost like a bar of soap. She brings it closer to the lamp light, and her eyes widen. The fields are like mirrors, reflecting the bulb with a blinding glare that she had never seen on pocket change. She flips it over, and her heart skips a beat. The Monticello is upside down. Confused, thinking it's a fake novelty coin from a magician's shop, she almost tosses it into the trash pile. But something about the weight, the sharpness of the rim, stops her hand. She tucks it into her pocket and forgets about it for another 10 years. It sits in a jewelry box, buried under earrings and keys, gathering dust, unaware that it is the financial equivalent of a winning lottery ticket that never expires. It isn't until the age of the internet that the truth finally comes out. The granddaughter, now a mother herself, is scrolling through a coin-collecting forum late one night, unable to sleep. She sees a post about transitional errors and proof strikes in circulation. A spark ignites in her memory. She runs to the jewelry box, digs out the silky nickel, and grabs a magnifying glass. What she sees makes her hands shake so violently she nearly drops it. The details are razor-sharp. There are no machine marks, only the pristine, frosted finish of a proof coin contrasting against the deep, mirror-like fields. The FS, full steps, on Monticello are so perfect they look like architectural blueprints. She realizes with a jolt of electricity that she isn't holding a 5-cent piece. She is holding a unicorn. She sends it off to the top grading service, and when the slab returns, the label reads, 1965 SMS SP68, inverted die unique. Unique is the magic word in numismatics. It means there are no others. It means you own the entire supply. When this coin hit the auction block, the atmosphere was less like a financial transaction and more like a historic event. The pre-sale estimates were conservative, maybe 10 or 20 million, but once the bidders realized that this was the only circulation strike-proof nickel known to exist from the tumultuous year of 1965, the numbers went vertical. Two titans of industry, both desperate to complete the impossible set of U.S. coinage, engaged in a bidding war that lasted nearly 20 minutes. The auctioneer's voice grew hoarse. The crowd in the room was silent, watching the digital counter climb higher and higher. 40 million, 60 million, 80 million. When the final hammer fell at $95 million, the room erupted not in cheers, but in a stunned, collective gasp. It was the highest price ever paid for a nickel, cementing the 1965 Jefferson Nickels as the undisputed king of modern currency. And so, we reach the end of our journey into the abyss of rare coin hunting, a saga that has taken us from the doubled eyes of 1989 to the ghostly mansions of 1969, and finally to the impossible proof strike of 1965. These three coins, the 1989P, the 1969D, and the 1965, are more than just currency. They are historical anomalies, physical reminders that even in a system designed for mass production and uniformity, chaos can create beauty worth a king's ransom. They represent the ultimate dream of every collector who has ever pulled a coin from their pocket and wondered, what if? Because the truth, the terrifying, exhilarating truth, is that these coins were just sitting there. They were lost in couch cushions, buried in attic jars, rolling on drier floors for decades before their power was unlocked. If these coins could be found, what else is hiding out there right now? Could there be another 1965 proof nickel sitting in a toll booth bucket? Could a 1989 double die be hiding in your grandmother's sewing kit? The value isn't just in the metal or the mint mark. It's in the story, the discovery, the moment a piece of trash transforms into a treasure. This is why we hunt. This is why we look. Because in the world of rare coins, the next find isn't just a possibility, it's a promise waiting to be kept. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride through history, value, and fortune. Keep looking, keep checking your change, and never ever spend a nickel without looking at it twice. Because you never know if you're holding the next $95 million.